On a crisp autumn morning in a busy city, Daniel sat on a park bench lacing up his old worn shoes, a stark contrast to the polished leather boots that most of the people around him wore. He glanced at the figures moving through the park, suits, heels, and the confident stride of those who seemed untouched by troubles. Daniel's shoes had seen better days, definitely. They were scuffed and frayed, telling stories of countless miles of hard work and perseverance, but today felt different. There was a buzz in the air, a hint of excitement surrounding the park. Just across from him, a woman named Lena leaned in against a tree, checking her phone. She was dressed in high fashion, an expert in how to make heads turn, and she wore a look of boredom that floated around her like a cloud. She glanced at Daniel and smirked dismissively. She said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Are they serious?" The words stung, slicing through the anticipation of the day ahead. Daniel's heart raced, not because of her comment, but because he was here for a big moment, a chance to pitch his startup idea to an investor who could change everything for him. He took a deep breath, trying to brush off her judgment. This wasn't about shoes, it was about dreams. Lena rolled her eyes and turned her attention back to her phone. Daniel felt a fire kindling in him. It wasn't just about the shoes, it was about proving himself. He had worked tirelessly, sleepless nights fueled by coffee and ambition. He wiped his palms on his faded jeans, rehearsing his pitch in his mind. The park was bustling with life and chatter, the hum of dreams and aspirations blending into a symphony. Daniel stood up and started pacing, trying to shake off the weight of Lena's words. At that moment, an older man with graying hair and a warm smile approached. He was carrying a leather bag, and Daniel recognized him instantly, the investor he had hoped would take a chance on him. The man said, extending a hand. Daniel replied, shaking the man's hand, feeling the warmth of a new opportunity. "Great to finally meet you." The man's gaze wandered to Daniel's shoes briefly, but he didn't scoff or show judgment. As they walked to a nearby cafe, Daniel's heart pounded. They settled at a small table outside. The man opened his notebook and leaned in, eager to hear Daniel's story. He asked, genuinely curious. Daniel took a deep breath, plunging into his carefully crafted pitch. He talked about his late nights, the challenges he faced, and the dream of creating something impactful. With each word, his passion flowed, sparking lights in the old man's eyes. But half an hour in, Daniel noticed Lena sitting a few tables away, scrolling on her phone. She looked up and caught Daniel's eye. For a moment, her expression shifted from boredom to mild curiosity. Watching from a distance but too far away to catch the details, she saw the spark in Daniel's eyes, the energy radiating from him. As Daniel spoke, he sensed the investor's interest growing. The man nodded, jotting down notes and frequently looking up, his attention fully on Daniel. Just as he wrapped up his pitch, the older man leaned back, a smile creeping across his face. "Daniel, I love your vision, but it's more than just your ideas, it's your determination that stands out," he said. "That's what drives businesses forward." Daniel's heart soared at those words. For a moment, the world around him faded, the sounds, the backdrop of the park, even Lena, all vanished. All he could hear was the rush of hope and validation. "Define further," Daniel asked, a hint of disbelief creeping into his voice. The investor grinned widely. "Further means let's talk shop." Daniel felt a wave of emotions wash over him: relief, excitement, disbelief. He had dreamt of this moment for so long. Just then, the man opened his bag and pulled out a set of keys, jingling them lightly. "These are the keys to our building. It won't be easy, but if you're willing, it's yours to run," he said, placing the keys on the table between them. Daniel's breath hitched. He couldn't help but glance back at Lena. Would she still scoff? Would she see the man in the shoes or the opportunity he had grasped? Lena's eyes widened in surprise. She had just been scrolling through her feeds, but now she could feel the shift in the air. Something had changed dramatically, and it caught her off guard. "I need to let this sink in," Daniel said, trying to maintain his composure. The investor chuckled softly. "Believe it, Daniel. What you wear does not define your talent or potential." It was as if a weight had lifted off Daniel's shoulders. His shoes suddenly felt lighter, and the scuffs didn't matter anymore. Just then, Lena, unable to contain her curiosity, stood up and walked closer. She asked, looking from Daniel to the investor and back again. Daniel cleared his throat, feeling a mix of triumph and nerves. "I just received an investment opportunity." Lena blinked, words escaping her, replaced by surprise and perhaps a hint of regret for her earlier words. She opened her mouth but closed it again, searching for the right thing to say. "Wow, that's impressive," she finally managed. The older man smiled at Lena, then looked back at Daniel. "Never underestimate anyone based on their appearance." Daniel sighed, relief mingling with disbelief. He picked up the keys, feeling their weight. They weren't just keys to a building, they were keys to a future where he could turn dreams into reality. As the cafe chatter heightened, Daniel couldn't help but notice Lena's fidgeting. Perhaps deep down she was reflecting on her earlier judgment. "I'm sorry about what I said before," she offered quietly. "I didn't know." Daniel smiled, recognizing her sincerity. "Don't worry about it. We all judge sometimes, we just need to be shown what's real." Their eyes locked for a moment, sharing a connection that transcended the initial scoff. This interaction wasn't just about the shoes or the keys, it was about navigating life's judgments and rising above them. As they exchanged pleasantries, Daniel's mind raced with excitement. He could envision what lay ahead, building a team, creating a space where new ideas flourish and making an impact. The rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children filled the air, painting a picture of what might be of dreams unfurling like beautiful autumn leaves. And as he walked away, the old shoes still on his feet, Daniel knew with every step he was just beginning, not just to transform his future, but to redefine what everyone around him thought they knew about success. On a bright, bustling Tuesday morning, Daniel stood outside a sleek, glass-fronted building, heart racing. The sunlight glinted off the low-rise structure, making it feel almost too glamorous for a man like him. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his shoes old, scuffed, and frayed, feeling heavier than ever. He knew he had a big meeting ahead, a chance to pitch his startup idea to an investor who could change everything. It felt surreal to think that just 3 months ago, he had been sketching concepts on a worn-out notepad in his cramped apartment. Now he had the opportunity of a lifetime, and yet, as he looked down at his shoes, insecurity crept in. But just then a woman walked by, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement, pulling Daniel from his reverie. Lena was effortlessly stylish, wearing a tailored blazer and designer purse that caught the eye of everyone around her. She cast a quick glance at Daniel's shoes, her lips curling into a disdainful smirk. She laughed, loud enough for him to hear. "Are those the shoes you're wearing to meet a potential investor?" The scoff carried a mixture of pity and superiority, enough to make Daniel's stomach twist, back straightening instinctively. He wanted to retort, wanted to say that shoes don't define a person's worth, but his throat tightened. Instead, he clenched his jaw and turned his gaze toward the entrance of the building, steeling himself. He was here for a reason, and Lena's judgment wouldn't determine his value. With every step inside, Daniel felt the weight of the world lift slightly. The lobby was pristine, decorated with modern art and plush seating. It smelled like fresh coffee and new beginnings. He spotted his contact, Mr. Carr, the investor who held the key to his dreams, standing near the reception with a warm smile and an outstretched hand. "Daniel, great to finally meet you," Mr. Carr said, shaking his hand firmly. His eyes flicked briefly down to Daniel's shoes, but then returned to his face, unperturbed. As they walked toward the cafe area, Daniel's heart pounded. The swoosh of sleek suits and the scent of polished wood around him fueled his nerves, but he pushed through. His vision for his startup had taken root in late nights, endless research, and the hope of making a difference. "Tell me more about what you're building," Mr. Carr encouraged, settling down at a small table lit by the soft morning sun. Daniel plunged in, sharing every detail he had practiced and polished. He spoke about his vision, a platform connecting talented freelancers with clients who needed their skills. He talked about the hurdles he had faced, each more daunting than the last, and the sleepless nights filled with doubt but also fierce determination. Mr. Carr listened intently, nodding and taking notes. Daniel had his full attention, and it felt empowering, but just as he was starting to believe in himself, a voice interjected. It was Lena, her presence radiating confidence as she approached their table. "I couldn't help but overhear, are you really the founder of this startup?" Daniel's heart dropped. It was one thing to run into her, but now here she was, interrupting a crucial moment. "Creative Connect," he managed to say, trying to keep his voice steady. Lena raised an eyebrow, a mock curiosity dancing on her face. "Is that so?" Her tone dripped with skepticism, and a ripple of discomfort washed over Daniel. Mr. Carr fixed his gaze on Lena, clearly unamused. "I think you should hear him out, he has a solid plan." Lena shrugged, a dismissive gesture. With those words, Daniel felt like someone had shoved the air out of his lungs. The judgment hung thick between them, but Mr. Carr opened his briefcase, a small smile playing on his lips. He pulled out a folder filled with documents and photos. "Here's what your pitches are going to look like." Daniel's breath hitched as he watched Mr. Carr lay out a vision that felt tantalizingly close to reality. Suddenly, it didn't matter that Lena stood there, judging him. He was creating something important, something that could truly benefit people. "See, Lena," Mr. Carr said, glancing back at her. "It's not about the clothes or shoes, it's about passion and persistence." For the first time, Daniel felt a rush of confidence. It was as if Mr. Carr's words had pulled him out of the shadows and into the light. It didn't matter how others saw him. What mattered was how he saw himself. Lena opened her mouth, likely to deliver another snarky comment, but this time, Daniel didn't wait for her. He spoke directly, cutting through the noise. "It's easy to judge someone based on their shoes or looks, but I've put in the hours, the hard work, and that's what truly matters." Her expression shifted slightly, and for a moment Daniel saw a flicker of understanding behind her eyes. Maybe she hadn't expected him to push back. "Fair point," she said, a little softer. "But you should still consider how you present yourself, Daniel." As she walked away, a mix of realization and regret seemed to ripple through her. Maybe she thought she had wasted a chance to connect. Maybe Daniel had knocked her off her pedestal, however briefly. With the confrontation still hanging in the air, Daniel returned his focus to Mr. Carr, who was flipping through the documents again. I like your spirit, Daniel. This is promising. Daniel's heart raced at the thought. Yes, Mr. Carr leaned back, holding Daniel's gaze fiercely. Good, but there are hurdles ahead. You need to surround yourself with a solid team, build a network, and yes, even polish your presentations. He paused, a glint in his eye. The way he said it made Daniel's stomach flutter. Yes, he reached into his bag, pulling out a set of keys that jingled like a bell of fortune. Daniel stared at the keys, disbelief washing over him. This was incredibly real. The keys felt heavy in his palm, a sign of promise and responsibility. He stammered, eyes wide. Absolutely, I believe in you. Let's discuss the contract and how to get everything rolling, Mr. Carr replied, his smile broadening. He couldn't believe it. Everything he had worked for was finally within reach. Suddenly, the old shoes, which felt like anchors moments before, felt like badges of honor. Each scuff told the story of perseverance, of struggle, and hope. Just then, Lena walked back into view, probably due to curiosity, her head tilting slightly as she caught sight of the keys in Daniel's hand. Her expression transformed, transforming disbelief into something else, maybe even admiration. She asked, eyes darting between Daniel and Mr. Carr. Daniel held up the keys, a grin breaking across his face. I'm starting my own company, Mr. The change in her demeanor was palpable. Gone was the scoffing attitude, replaced by wide-eyed wonder. Yep, he said, feeling an unfamiliar surge of pride. You're right about one thing, though. He glanced down at his shoes, then back up at her. But it's not everything. For what felt like an eternity, they shared a look of understanding. Lena must have realized how blind judgment can cloud one's vision. The world was bigger than shoes and labels. It was about hard work and determination. Congratulations, she finally said, genuine warmth in her tone. Thanks, Daniel replied, feeling an unexpected camaraderie. As Lena walked away, his heart swelled. It wasn't just about winning that moment against her. It was about fostering a new mindset. Daniel turned back to Mr. Carr, exhilaration bubbling up within him. Time to get to work, Mr. Carr said, his eyes sparkling with ambition. Daniel nodded vigorously, no longer feeling the weight of his shoes. These old, worn shoes had led him to this moment, a moment of opportunity, of growth, and of newfound belief. Together, they mapped out the next steps, creating a bridge from vision to reality. And as the sun streamed through the glass walls of the office building, illuminating the future, Daniel felt anchored not by his shoes, but by something far more powerful: purpose and resolve. And so, with keys in hand and dreams in his heart, he took his first steps into a world where potential was determined not by appearances, but by the fire within. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: he was ready to walk it, one step at a time. Daniel stood in the bustling city square, his heart pounding in tune with the clock ticking toward his big moment. The sun glittered off the neighboring glass skyscrapers, catching the eye of every passerby except for him. Instead, he glanced down at his shoes, old and scuffed, the faded fabric a testament to long hours and years of work. They weren't the polished loafers worn by the businessmen rushing past him, but their stories echoed deeply within him. As he took a steadying breath, a woman glided past like a gust of wind. Lena, she was the embodiment of confidence and style, dressed in an immaculate outfit that screamed success. But the moment her gaze fell on Daniel's shoes, her composure faltered. A scoff escaped her lips, loud enough to ripple through the air between them. Is this a joke? Daniel felt heat rush to his cheeks. Her words stung, not because he cared about her opinion, but because they struck at the vulnerability he carried. Here he was on the brink of success, yet her laughter echoed his own insecurities, the doubts that haunted him like shadows. Just wait, he thought, grinding his teeth as he forced a smile. She had no idea that beneath those tattered shoes lay countless nights of planning and dreaming. He didn't have time to dwell, he needed to focus. That morning he had one goal: to convince Mr. Carr, the influential investor, to believe in his startup. It was a chance to shift the tide of his life. Daniel stepped into the sleek building where the meeting was set to take place. The lobby radiated sophistication, with cream-colored marble and contemporary art adorning the walls. As he scanned the room, he spotted Mr. Carr talking to other entrepreneurs, his demeanor warm yet commanding. The seconds felt like hours as Daniel waited for his turn. But once seated across from Mr. Carr, the world around him faded. This was his moment. It allowed the passion he had cultivated to flow, detailing his vision of a platform meant to connect talented freelancers with eager clients. I want to bridge the gap, he explained enthusiastically, creating a space where creativity meets opportunity. Mr. Carr leaned in, his eyes glistening with interest. Interesting. Daniel began to outline his strategy, the market needs, and how his platform provided solutions. Each word felt like a stepping stone toward the future he had dreamed. Investor nodded at appropriate moments, his attention unwavering. Daniel felt a flicker of hope igniting, but then there was Lena striding back into view, her confidence palpable. She was more than just a pretty facade, she was sharp, charming, and undeniably captivating. Only now she was standing at the edge of the cafe, leaning casually, but her gaze was fixed on Daniel and Mr. Carr. "Excuse me," she interrupted, stepping toward their table. "I couldn't help but overhear the buzz." Lena, Mr. Carr greeted with polite surprise. You remember Daniel? Her eyes narrowed slightly as she registered his old shoes. Of course, she replied with a hint of condescension. So you're the founder everyone's talking about. The room thickened with tension and Daniel felt the urge to shrink back. Great to meet you, he said, forcing a smile. I hope you're not expecting investors to take you seriously in those, she jabbed, gesturing dismissively at his shoes. The air seemed to crackle as if ready to burst, but Mr. Carr shook his head, his voice steady and calm. Actually, Lena, that's a misconception. Daniel could hardly believe his ears. Mr. Carr was defending him. For a fleeting second, he felt validated. Right, but let's be honest, Lena replied, her tone teasing. In the business world, first impressions matter. A silent battle of wills played out across the table, Lena's polished exterior against Daniel's raw determination. This wasn't just about shoes, it was a test of value, worth, and resilience. Daniel took a breath, letting the moment settle. You're right that first impressions matter, he said, his voice steady. But there's something more important, substance. I've spent countless hours developing this idea. Lena opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. The tension shifted slightly as she seemed momentarily taken aback. Mr. Carr leaned forward, a satisfied smile creeping onto his lips. Exactly, Daniel. As the conversation continued, Daniel felt a surge of confidence. The dialogue shifted from superficial judgments to the essence of entrepreneurship. He leaned into that moment, delivering his vision with an intensity he hadn't shown before. The cafe buzzed with chatter, but he and Mr. Carr were cocooned in something special. The focus was no longer on old shoes or career clothes. It was about ideas, innovation, and creating a better tomorrow. Lena lingered for a while, but it was clear she had lost her edge in the conversation. As they wrapped up, she stepped back, clearly searching for something to say that could reestablish her authority. Well, let's just hope the market agrees with your ideas, she said, a hint of sarcasm still clinging to her words. Hope doesn't enter into it, Daniel shot back, feeling the fire within him spark even more. The interaction faded, and soon Lena made her exit, mystery wrapped in her stylish silhouette. Daniel had faced judgment head-on, and rather than back down, he had stood his ground. It felt exhilarating. Daniel, Mr. Carr spoke, breaking through his thoughts. I'm impressed by your diligence. Daniel's heart raced, disbelief wrapping around him like a warm blanket. Absolutely, Mr. Carr replied, his eyes shining with excitement. With those words, he pulled out a set of keys. The shimmering metal caught the light, each individual key promising opportunity and new beginnings. These are for your new office space. Daniel's breath caught. The keys were heavy in his hand, a tangible representation of his hard work paying off. I can't believe this, he stammered, a mix of joy and disbelief flooding through him. That's just the beginning. I see potential in you, Daniel. As they made plans to finalize the deal, Daniel's mind spun with possibilities. This was his moment, the culmination of countless hours spent dreaming, working, and struggling. It was more than just a chance at success. It was an affirmation of all he had believed about himself. As they stepped out of the cafe, Daniel glanced back and his eyes caught Lena once more. She stood in the crowd, and this time her expression was different. There was no ridicule, no derision, just a look of awareness, maybe even respect. He lifted the keys slightly, just enough for her to see. A smile spread across his face. These old shoes had not defined his journey. They had been the vehicle through which he had propelled himself toward his goals. The city buzzed around him like a living organism, each person a part of the grand design of ambition and effort. And as he felt the keys shift in his palm, he realized that every step forward was also a step toward breaking through the barriers others had created, barriers of judgment and superficial expectations. Daniel turned back, determined. It was going to be a long road ahead, filled with challenges, setbacks, and victories. But armed with those keys and an unshakable belief in his vision, he was ready to forge ahead. No longer just the man with old shoes, he was a founder, a dreamer, and now the bearer of keys leading him into a brighter future, a future where he would redefine what it meant to succeed. And as he stepped into the bustling life around him, he carried not just the weight of his old shoes, but the lightness of new beginnings. With every stride, he moved toward a world where potential and passion would dictate his journey, not what anyone else chose to see. Daniel stood outside the towering office building, his heart racing. The sun was just beginning to rise over the cityscape, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. He could feel the pulse of opportunity all around him, but all he could think about was the scuffed, dirt-covered shoes on his feet. As he shifted nervously, glancing at his reflection in a nearby window, he wondered if those old shoes would cost him the chance he had craved for so long. Moments later, the sound of heels clicking on the pavement sliced through his thoughts. Lena emerged from a nearby cafe, the embodiment of confidence. Dressed in a stylish blazer and tailored pants, she easily commanded attention. But when her sharp eyes landed on Daniel, they sparkled with something different disdain. What a joke, she scoffed, her laughter cutting through the cool morning air. Is that what you're wearing to meet a potential investor? Daniel's cheeks burned with embarrassment. The laughter of passers-by felt like a chorus amplifying her words, their eyes flickering to the wreckage on his feet. He took a deep breath, pushing back against the tide of humiliation. Underneath the layers of discomfort, a spark of determination ignited. He couldn't allow anyone, least of all Lena, to define his worth by his appearance. "Just keep moving," he whispered to himself as he turned his back on her, forcing his eyes ahead. As he walked through the gleaming glass doors of the building, he felt a wave of resolve wash over him. This was the day he had worked countless hours for a chance to share his startup idea with Mr. Carr, a respected investor who had the power to change everything. Once inside, the lobby was a flurry of activity, people clad in sharp suits engaged in conversations that buzzed with ambition. Daniel found himself in a different world, surrounded by people who looked the part. He felt an awkward weight in his stomach, but he pushed it aside, determined to remain focused. A booming voice caught his attention. Mr. Carr standing tall with an air of authority. "Thank you, Mr. Carr," Daniel replied, shaking his hand firmly. He felt a rush of gratitude that someone believed in him. "Let's get to it," Mr. Carr said, leading Daniel to a small conference room adorned with sleek furniture and large windows that overlooked the bustling street below. As they settled into their seats, Daniel's heart raced. He had rehearsed his pitch countless times, each word polished until it sparkled in his mind. "My startup is called Creative Connect," he began, excitement creeping into his voice. "It's a platform where freelance talent meets clients in need of skilled work." Mr. Carr leaned in, eyes sparkling with interest as Daniel continued. He could feel the buzz of enthusiasm rising within him, sweeping away the insecurities that had plagued him outside. He articulated his vision with clarity, covering every aspect: the market research, the projected growth, the features that set them apart. It was as if every thought flowed into a narrative that made sense and resonated. But just as he began to feel that thrilling sensation of connection, a familiar presence disrupted the air. Lena had returned, weaving her way through the chairs and tables with an air of casual confidence. "Pardon my interruption," she said, her tone dripping with mockery, "but this is interesting." Daniel's pulse quickened. She had disrupted his momentum, but he wouldn't let that happen. "I believe it will," he answered firmly, meeting her gaze directly. "Really?" She gestured dismissively. "You do know people invest in founders, right?" The words stung like a slap, and Daniel clenched his fists. He could see Mr. Carr beginning to frown, clearly irritated by Lena's behavior. "Lena, that's not the point here," Mr. Carr said, his voice cutting through the tension. "It's not about what he wears." "Sure," Lena shot back, crossing her arms. "But does he really expect people to take him seriously?" In that moment, Daniel wasn't just fighting for his pitch, he was fighting for his very identity. His shoes were a symbol of his journey, each scuff telling the story of hardship, late nights, and endless hustle. He took a deep breath, steadied his voice, and responded, "Lena, if you think I'm defined by my shoes, maybe you don't understand what it takes to build something real." There was a moment of silence, the three of them locked in their own private battle. Lena blinked, momentarily thrown off balance, while Mr. Carr regarded Daniel with an approving nod. "You're right," Mr. Carr said, his eyes warm. "What matters is the drive." The conversation shifted, and Daniel seized the opportunity. Speaking passionately about adaptability in an ever-evolving landscape gave him fresh strength. Each point he made reinforced why he was the right person for this venture. For the first time since entering the building, he relaxed, feeling the rhythm of the pitch carry him forward. Lena, on the other hand, shifted uneasily, her defenses faltering. She could have chosen to engage with the conversation, but instead she lingered at the edges, her intrigue battling with her pride. The dynamic had shifted. She was no longer the judge, but an outsider observing something significant unfold. As the discussion concluded and Mr. Carr expressed his genuine interest, Daniel's heart soared. He hadn't just delivered a pitch, he had claimed his space. "I'll be in touch, Daniel," Mr. Carr said, giving him a firm handshake. Relief and excitement washed over Daniel, but he was still aware of Lena's quiet presence in the room. As he turned to leave, the weight of the moment pressed on him. He had faced judgment head-on and emerged stronger. Before stepping out, he glanced back. With that, he left the room, heart racing and spirit soaring. The building door swung open and he stepped onto the sidewalk, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. He had done it, but just as he began to walk away, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Carr. "Meet me at the cafe in 10 minutes. A thrill shot through him. Was this a good sign? He turned back, heading toward the cafe in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. When he arrived, Mr. Carr was already seated, an eager smile on his face. "I wanted to discuss the potential for finding new office space," he said, sliding a set of keys across the table. "These are for your new office." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He stared at the keys as if they were a prize, each one a path to a new beginning. He asked, still in disbelief. "Absolutely," Mr. Carr replied, "but remember, it's not just about the office. You'll need to build a strong team and make sure your vision remains clear." His heart soared, and for a moment time felt suspended. The city outside faded. All that existed was the possibility before him. He reached for the keys, fingers trembling as he took them into his hands. They felt heavy with promise and responsibility, a tangible symbol of the journey ahead. As Daniel sat down again, conversation flowed easily. Discussed the logistics, the challenges, and the excitement of starting fresh. It was a beautiful exchange, one invigorated by potential and passion. Later, as he left the cafe, he couldn't help but reflect on the day. It had begun with ridicule but transformed into a moment of clarity. He had embraced who he was, the journey, the scars, and yes, even those old shoes. When he stepped outside, the world felt different. He had been honored with the keys to not just an office, but to his future. He glanced back toward the glass facade of the building where Lena stood, a specter in the crowd. She was watching him, a look of unexpected respect on her face. It was a moment of acknowledgement. He had proven that no amount of judgment could overshadow determination. He had walked the path of struggle, and it had led him to something grand. As he walked down the bustling street, the keys in his pocket, Daniel felt a surge of hope. He envisioned the future before him, one filled with challenges to overcome and dreams to fulfill. And as he made his way down that sunlit path, he carried with him not just a set of keys, but a life lesson. True worth is born not out of appearances, but through resilience and an unwavering belief in oneself. He stepped forward into the future, one that shone brighter with every step, ready to make his mark on the world-old shoes and all. Daniel stood in front of the towering glass building, heart pounding in his chest. The morning sun gleamed off the sleek facade, reflecting the hopes and dreams of many who walked through those doors. He adjusted his old, scuffed shoes and took a deep breath. This was a pivotal moment, his chance to pitch his startup idea to a prominent investor. As he felt the weight of opportunity pressing down on him, a sharp laugh shattered his focus. "Wow, is that really what you're wearing to pitch?" The voice cut through the crowd, and he turned to see Lena, the epitome of polished elegance, strolling past with her perfectly manicured nails and designer handbag. She raised an eyebrow, her laughter mingling with the bustling sounds of the city as if to highlight his apparent failure. Daniel felt heat flood his cheeks. What was supposed to be a moment of empowerment became a reminder of his struggle. Everyone around him wore the latest trends, their shoes gleaming as they rushed toward success. And here he was, standing with shoes that had seen better days, each scuff telling a story of sleepless nights and relentless hustle. "Just wait," he whispered to himself, working to silence the voices of doubt rattling in his mind. He wasn't just an ordinary guy, he was an entrepreneur with a vision. With a blend of determination and anxiety, he pushed through the lobby doors. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Business people flitted about, discussing deals and plans over lattes. Daniel felt an outsider in this sea of sharp suits and tailored dresses. He walked toward the waiting area, choosing to ignore the sneers and judgments he could feel directed at him. Finally, Mr. Carr, the investor he had long admired, approached with a warm smile. "Daniel." There was a spark of recognition in Mr. Carr's eyes, and for a moment Daniel felt a wave of reassurance wash over him. "Thanks a lot for meeting with me," Daniel replied, trying to muster confidence. Mr. Carr guided him past gleaming glass walls and bustling teams, and Daniel's pulse quickened. Every step felt like a small victory, pulling him closer to his dreams. Once seated, Daniel launched into his pitch, feeling nerves and excitement duel within him. Creative Connect is not just a platform, it's a community where freelancers and clients come together to create something incredible. Imagine bright minds collaborating, achieving goals, and building careers, but just as he began to lose himself in the vibrant narrative he had crafted, Lena reappeared, standing by the door with a knowing smirk. "Am I interrupting?" Daniel's throat tightened, but he steadied himself, unwilling to let her derail him. Lena, shoe polish doesn't determine a person's potential. Creativity comes from experience and hard work. Mr. Carr glanced at Daniel, a hint of annoyance crossing his face. "Lena, it's not about appearances." Lena shrugged, unbothered. "But first impressions matter, right?" Daniel held his ground, anger bubbling beneath the surface. What's beneath the shoe is more important. For a moment, both Lena and Mr. Carr were silent, stunned by his words. Daniel could feel the energy in the room shift. He had fought back against the judgment, not just for himself, but for anyone who had ever felt belittled. Mr. Carr nodded, his expression one of approval. "Exactly." Lena's facade began to crack, and her dismissive smirk faltered slightly. "Fair enough, but even so, nothing," Mr. Carr interjected. With Lena quiet, Daniel dove back into his pitch, finding renewed strength. He spoke of the community he envisioned, an inclusive, supportive environment for freelancers and clients alike. He painted pictures of collaboration, success stories, and a new kind of professionalism. His enthusiasm bubbled over. As the minutes passed, Daniel could see Mr. Carr leaning in, engaged and intrigued. Lena, on the other hand, stood at the periphery, her confidence replaced by a flicker of curiosity. By the time Daniel concluded, he felt exhausted but exhilarated. "Thank you for your time." Mr. Carr sat back, deep in thought. After what felt like an eternity, he smiled wide and said, "You've got something special there, Daniel." His words sent shockwaves through Daniel. "Absolutely. We can begin discussing office space and next steps. This isn't just a pitch, it's the start of something monumental," Mr. Carr replied, sliding a folder across the table that contained details of potential office locations and startup contracts. Just then, Lena stepped forward again, this time with no hint of mockery. "You actually think this idea will work?" Daniel squared his shoulders. "I don't just think it will work, I know it will." Lena remained silent, a blend of respect and disbelief passing over her face. "Well, I guess you'll see," she said, her voice softer, almost conciliatory. After the meeting, Daniel stepped into the lobby with Mr. Carr, the excitement bubbling within him. But the moment was interrupted when Mr. Carr turned to him, holding out a set of keys. "Daniel, I'm giving you these. They're keys to your new office." The metal gleamed in the light and Daniel felt his breath hitch. These were more than just keys. They were symbols of hard work, dreams, and potential realized. Holding them filled him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. It was all he could manage to say. "Of course, you deserve this." "Let's get started on making your idea a reality," Mr. Carr said with an encouraging smile. As Daniel accepted the keys, the weight of the world felt lighter on his shoulders. He dared to hope that he could carve out a space in the world, regardless of how unimposing his footwear seemed. Walking out with the keys in hand felt surreal. The city buzzed around him, but it was as if he was in a world of his own, celebrating the small yet significant victory. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but he had already faced the biggest one: judgment. Then glancing back, Daniel spotted Lena in the distance. She stood slightly apart from the crowd, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Was it admiration, regret, whatever it was, he no longer felt diminished by her presence. Lena stepped forward, closing the space. "Daniel," she hesitated, searching for words. "I didn't realize how much passion you had for this idea." He held her gaze. "It's okay. We all make judgments based on what we see." At that moment she nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. Daniel smiled, feeling a sense of closure. He had not only fought for his vision, but had also challenged the idea that success is dictated by appearances. "Thanks for coming back." With the conversation winding down, Lena lifted her gaze toward the city's skyline. "I'll be keeping an eye on Creative Connect." "Thanks, Lena, I appreciate that," he replied, feeling refreshed by the unexpected camaraderie. As he broke away from the conversation, Daniel walked further into the heart of the city. The keys in his pocket felt like anchors of possibility, ready to unlock the doors of his dreams. The old shoes still clung to his feet, but now they felt different. They were no longer symbols of judgment, but emblems of tenacity. With each step, the confidence within him grew. He dared to envision a future where creativity flourished in a world that used to be governed by appearances. As he turned the corner, the sunlight pulled warmth through the chill of the morning, illuminating the path ahead, a path toward transformation, collaboration, and empowerment. He had faced ridicule but found strength in vulnerability. He had walked through the fire of judgment and emerged not just a survivor but a champion. With every stride, Daniel knew he wasn't just forging a new journey for himself, he was paving the way for others to follow. He held the keys close, ready to write his own story and redefine what success truly meant, old shoes and all. And as he stepped confidently into his new world, he felt the thrill of possibility electrify the air, knowing he was finally headed where he belonged. Daniel stood at the entrance of a sleek, glass-faced building, heart racing. The glass facade reflected his anxious face. He adjusted his grip on the worn leather briefcase, filled with the dreams he had nurtured for months. But every time he glanced down at his shoes, old, scuffed, and practically falling apart, he felt the weight of judgment wash over him. Just then he heard a peal of laughter. Lena strode past, the embodiment of confidence and success. In her perfectly fitted blazer and fashion-forward shoes, she radiated an aura that demanded attention. But it was her eyes that struck him sharp, evaluating and undeniably dismissive. She scoffed, letting her laughter bounce off the polished concrete. "You do know this is a business meeting, right?" Daniel's cheeks burned. He wanted to shrink back, hide behind the nearest wall, yet something deep inside him ignited. How could someone like her define him by the appearance of his shoes? Each scuff spoke of sleepless nights, hard work, and a relentless pursuit of a dream. He straightened his back, refusing to let her judgment pull him down. "Just wait," he murmured under his breath as he walked inside, burying the sting of her words. This was his moment. He had worked too hard to let anyone's ridicule dictate his spirit. The lobby buzzed with the hum of success, people bustling around, their polished shoes making confident sounds on the floor. He could feel eyes on him, whispers circling about his old shoes. But he pushed through, focusing on the task ahead, pitching his startup, Creative Connect, to his investor, Mr. Carr. As Daniel moved to the meeting room, he was greeted by a warm smile from Mr. Carr. "Daniel, it's great to see you." "Thank you, Mr. Carr," Daniel replied, forcing a smile. He couldn't remember a time when he had wanted something so badly. "Let's get to it," Mr. Carr encouraged, leading Daniel into a sleek conference room bathed in natural light. The atmosphere felt charged, and he could sense the opportunity waiting in the air. Sitting across from Mr. Carr, Daniel felt the weight of his idea pressing on his shoulders. He took a steadying breath and launched into his pitch. Creative Connect is designed to bridge the gap between freelancers and clients, creating a robust platform where creativity flourishes. As he spoke, he saw Mr. Carr's interest growing. He laid out statistics and projections, strategies and solutions, each point building the narrative of his dream. For the first time that day, he began to lose the weight of insecurity. But just as he felt on a roll, Lena reappeared, leaning casually against the door frame with a smirk that could cut glass. Mind if I interrupt? I didn't realize this was your pitch, she said, her voice teasing. Lena, Mr. Carr started, but she waved him off. No, really, this is interesting. But tell me, Daniel, are you really expecting to get investors on board with a brand like Creative Connect? Daniel's heart raced again, but this time with a mix of adrenaline and determination. He countered, catching her off guard for a moment. It's not just how you look, Lena replied, a hint of condescension slipping back into her voice. It's about first impressions. The words stung more than he wanted to admit, but something shifted in him. He tightened his grip on the table, letting the tension fuel him. Lena, you think you can judge my worth based on my shoes, but these shoes carry my journey, my late nights, my missed chances, and every ounce of hard work. I'm not here to impress you. A brief silence enveloped the room. Mr. Carr looked intrigued, while Lena's expression shifted from mockery to contemplation. You've got guts, Daniel, Mr. Carr said, nodding slowly. That's what I want to see in a founder. Lena scoffed again, but this time there was less force behind it. Whatever. Daniel felt a rush of adrenaline. Overcoming her judgment was only part of the battle. Let me show you what I can do, he said firmly. He refocused on Mr. Carr, regaining that spark of inspiration. He continued speaking about Creative Connect, now brimming with an energy that had lain dormant. The minutes flew by, and as he described future milestones and the impact of his platform, he saw Mr. Carr leaning forward, nodding approvingly. When he finally concluded, sweat glistened on his brow, but as he met Mr. Carr's gaze, he felt every ounce of anxiety lift. I like what I see, Daniel. Daniel's heart soared. He had won the moment he had thought would slip from his grasp due to old shoes and insecurities. Just as things were shifting in his favor, Lena stepped closer again, her demeanor somewhat softened. Okay, fine, you've made your point. Absolutely, Daniel responded, feeling the conviction in his voice. In a world full of distractions, we need a space that fosters collaboration and creativity. This time, Lena didn't retort, but instead she observed him, perhaps even with a glimmer of appreciation. Well, I guess we'll see, she replied, her tone warming. Daniel couldn't help but smile. Whether she understood him or not, she wasn't the one defining his worth any longer. The meeting's energy shifted overwhelmingly positive as Mr. Carr began discussing logistics, contracts, office space, potential hires. It was a whirlwind of excitement. Daniel barely had time to process it all, but felt as if he was lifting off the ground. As they finished, Mr. Carr reached into his bag and pulled out a set of keys, placing them on the table. These are for your office. Daniel's breath hitched in his throat. The keys glinted under the room's lights, each one a doorway to possibilities he had only dreamed about. It was all he could swallow out loud. Absolutely. As he stared at the keys, a wave of gratitude flooded over him. He had fought against judgments, against his insecurities, and now here he was, clutching a tangible piece of his dreams. Thank you, Mr. Carr, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Exhilarated, Daniel stood up, feeling the rush of accomplishment coursing through him. He glanced back at Lena, whose expression had shifted significantly. Her competitive edge was dulled, replaced by something that seemed almost like respect. Congrats, Daniel, she said sincerely. Surprised, he couldn't find the words. Those shoes might just lead you somewhere amazing after all, she added with a hint of a smile. As Daniel walked out of the conference room, the weight of judgment felt lighter. He was stepping into his new life, keys jangling in his pocket, knowing that with each old scuff on his shoes, he carried the story of his journey, a journey built on perseverance and grit. Outside, the world felt different. The sun glared high above, washing everything in light. He took a deep breath, taking in the vibrant energy of the city. The whispers and laughter that had once felt like daggers now resonated with a different kind of rhythm, one of hope and potential. He began to walk with purpose, imagining the office space he would transform and the community he would build. Each step echoed a promise to nurture the creativity he had dreamed of sharing with others. And as Daniel looked down at his old shoes, he didn't see the scuffs or wear anymore. Instead, he saw history, his history, a testament to the struggles and sweat that had led him to this moment. With keys in hand and a vision in mind, Daniel stepped forward confidently, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He understood the world didn't define him by appearance, it defined him by the impact he would make. He was not just a guy in old shoes. He was a founder, a creator, a dreamer weaving his story into the fabric of a thriving community, one step and one key at a time. Daniel stood nervously outside a high-rise office building, heart pounding in his chest as he adjusted his worn-out shoes. They were old, with scuffs that told tales of countless long days, late nights, and everything he had sacrificed to be here. Today was pivotal. It was his moment to pitch to Mr. Carr, an influential investor who could change his life. Just as he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves, a laugh pierced through the air. The voice was sharp, unmistakably mocking. He turned to see Lena, impeccably dressed, her designer heels gleaming. She was leaning against a sleek car, a smirk dancing across her lips. A fire ignited in Daniel's gut. He felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him, mixed with determination. The shoes that Lena was scornfully observing were a part of him, a representation of every struggle he had faced. They didn't define his dreams, his hard work did. Just wait, he thought, pushing aside the stinging comment. He needed to focus on what mattered. This was more than a pitch, it was a chance to prove himself. Entering the building, Daniel felt the familiar buzz of energy. The lobby thrummed with ambition, people bustling past in sharp suits. He squeezed through the crowd, adrenaline swirling through him. He was excited, anxious, and just a bit fearful. Mr. Carr's booming voice cut through his thoughts. He turned to see the investor smiling warmly. The warmth of that smile gave him a jolt of hope, right on time. As they walked to the conference room, Daniel felt a strange mix of awe and anxiety. This was it, the moment he had worked tirelessly for. He entered the sleek, glass-walled room where sunlight spilled in, illuminating the vibrant energy inside. Taking a seat, he placed his briefcase on the table, hands trembling as he opened it, revealing his meticulously organized notes. Daniel cleared his throat and started speaking, pouring his heart into his pitch. Creative Connect is a platform that bridges talented freelancers with clients seeking quality work. It's designed to foster collaboration and celebrate creativity, he explained. Mr. Carr listened intently, nodding as Daniel's passion flowed. With every word, he felt the weight of insecurity begin to lift. He spoke about the market needs, the innovative features, and the impact they could create. Daniel could see Mr. Carr leaning forward, clearly intrigued. Just as he was getting into a rhythm, Lena's presence disrupted the moment once again. She entered the room, arms crossed, casting a critical glance over Daniel before turning her attention to Mr. Carr. She said, her tone frosty, "This is fascinating, but isn't the brand just a little underwhelming?" That familiar rush of anger bubbled inside Daniel, but he clenched his fists to suppress it. Mr. Carr shifted in his chair, sensing the tension. "Lena, it's about the value of the idea, not the appearance of the founder." With renewed determination, Daniel focused back on his pitch. "I truly believe that Creative Connect has the potential to transform how people collaborate in the gig economy." As Daniel spoke passionately, he felt the rhythm of the room shift. His words began to paint a picture that transcended all judgments. Finally, he caught a glimpse of respect in Mr. Carr's eyes, and oddly enough, even in Lena's. "You're really passionate about this, Mr. Carr noted, leaning back with a hint of a smile. Lena watched him closely, her expression shifting from sarcasm to a more contemplative demeanor. Lena's words twisted like a knife, but Daniel chose to rise above her judgment. "Lena, these shoes represent my journey. Every scuff, every wear tells the story of my struggles and my commitment. It's not about the shoes." The room fell silent. Daniel had laid it all out there, confronted Lena's judgment head-on. He could feel the tension morphing into something different, perhaps even a shared understanding. Mr. Carr broke the silence. "That's what we need in a founder, resilience." Daniel felt buoyed by the validation. "Exactly," he said. "In a world that often values appearance over depth, I aim to change that." Lena's brows furrowed, and for the first time her scorn seemed absent. Instead, she looked genuinely contemplative. Maybe, just maybe, Daniel's words were resonating. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Carr nodded decisively. "I like what I'm hearing, Daniel." Relief flooded through Daniel's body. He had successfully pitched his idea, won over Mr. Carr, and pushed back against judgment, all in one afternoon. As the meeting concluded, Mr. Carr reached into his bag, withdrawing a set of keys. "Daniel, these are for your new office." Daniel's breath hitched as he realized the significance of those keys. They weren't just metal, they represented the future he had dreamed of, the opportunity to make his vision a reality. He asked, disbelief washing over him. Mr. Carr smiled with reassurance. "Absolutely." As he grasped the set of keys, a surge of emotion cracked through Daniel. His heart raced as he considered the long journey that had led him to this moment. He looked up, filled with gratitude. "Thank you so much." But just as he turned to leave, Lena approached, her expression more subdued. "You know, Daniel," she said, hesitating before continuing, "I didn't realize you had it in you." Daniel returned her gaze, sensing sincerity. "Thanks, Lena." They shared a moment of understanding, two dreamers on different paths, yet somehow connected through a shared experience. As Daniel left the building, the weight of judgment lifted with every step. He walked outside, keys in hand, the sunlight pouring down as he envisioned his future. The city pulsed around him, but every noise felt like a symphony celebrating his triumph. Each scuff on his old shoes became a badge of honor rather than a mark of shame. They carried him through sleepless nights, through struggles that no one else saw, and now they were leading him towards something greater than he had ever imagined. With each stride, he forged his path, heart pounding not out of fear but from excitement. There were challenges ahead, no doubt, but he was ready to face them head-on. He felt empowered by the faith Mr. Carr had shown in him, and by the battle he had fought against judgment. As he walked to his new office, he felt the possibilities swelling within him. He envisioned the bright walls where creativity would flourish, the people he would inspire, the connections he would foster. Then a thought struck him: he could help others who faced dismissals like he had. He wanted to build a platform where everyone feels empowered, where creativity knows no bounds, and where judgment is left at the door. Arriving at the building, he took a moment to absorb it all: the bustling city, the vibrant life surrounding him, the dreams just waiting to be touched. Clutching the keys tightly, he realized this was just the beginning. He wasn't just a man in old shoes or an entrepreneur. He was a pioneer, ready to carve out his own place in the world. With renewed conviction, Daniel took a deep breath and pushed the door open, stepping into the future he would create not just for himself, but for countless others ready to break free from judgment and seize their own opportunities. He was ready to transform the world one connection at a time, ensuring that every person who walked through the door, no matter what they wore, felt valued, heard, and empowered. Daniel smiled, looking down at his old shoes. They might be worn, but they were leading him to incredible places. And as he turned the key in the lock of his new office, he stepped forward into a new chapter, the start of something beautiful, bold, and entirely his own. Daniel stood anxiously outside the towering glass building, his heart beating in his chest like a drum. It was the day he had waited for, the day he would pitch to Mr. Carr, a well-known investor. He glanced down at his old, worn shoes, the soles scuffed and barely holding together. Each scratch and mark told a story of late nights, hard work, and relentless perseverance. Just as he steeled himself to walk through the doors, a sharp voice sliced through the air. Lena stood there impeccably dressed, her designer outfit radiating confidence. Daniel's cheeks flushed. The laughter that followed echoed in his ears, a cruel reminder that some people measured worth by appearances. Here we go again, he thought, but he refused to let it shake him. He straightened up, ignoring the embarrassment that wanted to swirl around him like a storm. With determined steps, he entered the building, heart racing, determination igniting in his chest. He had called this day his doing day, the day he would put everything he had worked for on the line. Daniel had spent years crafting his startup, detailed ideas sketched out tirelessly in the margins of notebooks, each page filled with dreams and plans. As he strode through the minimalist lobby filled with polished marble and sleek furnishings, he could feel the eyes of other professionals assessing him. It was a cast of serious faces and shiny shoes, all gliding toward their aspirations, but Daniel pressed on, focused only on the meeting ahead. Daniel, Mr. Carr's voice rang out, warm and inviting. Daniel felt a rush of relief as he walked over, shaking the investor's hand firmly. Mr. Carr was known for spotting potential, and Daniel had to be at his best today. Sitting in the glass-walled conference room, Daniel felt the weight of his briefcase in his lap, his dreams pressed tightly inside. With a nod from Mr. Carr, he took a deep breath and began pouring his heart into the pitch. Creative Connect is more than a platform, it's a bridge for freelancers and businesses. As he spoke, the passion in Daniel's voice grew. He painted a vivid picture of artists and professionals coming together in an ecosystem focused on elevation and creativity. He could see Mr. Carr nodding along, interest sparking in his eyes. This was it, the moment he had prepared for. But just as he gained momentum, Lena appeared again, leaning against the entrance. Her presence was commanding. "Excuse me for interrupting," she interjected, her tone dripping with faux politeness. "Is this really the way to present a business idea?" Her words were like ice in his veins, but he refused to let them deter him. "Lena, this isn't about my shoes," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "It's about the value I bring and the vision I have. These shoes might be old, but they carry the weight of hard work." For a moment, the room fell silent. Mr. Carr's eyebrows lifted in surprise, perhaps impressed by Daniel's assertion. Lena's confidence flickered, but she quickly masked it with a slight scoff. Still, Daniel felt a shift. He was no longer just playing defense, he was owning the space. "You might want to focus on your presentation instead," she retorted, brushing him off. That fire of anger surged within Daniel again, but this time it transformed into something more powerful: determination. "If you can't see beyond appearances, that's your loss," he said, looking her straight in the eye. The tension in the room thickened. Daniel felt his heart pound, but Mr. Carr broke the silence. He gestured for Daniel to continue. Taking a steadying breath, Daniel delved deeper into his vision. His words flowed, the excitement building within him as he articulated how Creative Connect was not just a business, but a movement. He spoke about the future of work, a community where people supported and uplifted one another, a network built on collaboration instead of competition. As the discussion flowed, he caught glimpses of interest and engagement on Mr. Carr's face. Lena's expression shifted too. There was something almost respectful in the way she looked at him now. He realized that she was not just judging his shoes anymore, she was actually listening. When Daniel wrapped up, he could feel the room's energy buzzing with potential. "I genuinely believe this platform can change how people work together. It's time we move past superficial assessments and focus on genuine talent," he concluded. Mr. Carr smiled broadly. "You've captured my attention, Daniel." Relief washed over Daniel as he couldn't help but smile back. This was what he had longed for, a chance to make his idea take flight. But before he could bask in the victory, Lena spoke up again. She challenged, attempting to regain her footing. Daniel felt the heat rise in him again, but it was quickly tempered by Mr. Carr's firm response. "Lena, I think Daniel has proven today that it's not about what you wear." The validation from Mr. Carr settled into Daniel's bones, propelling him to stand taller. "Thank you, Mr. Carr. I believe in my vision and what we can build together." Lena crossed her arms, a hint of frustration flashing in her eyes. After some final discussions, the meeting concluded. Mister, he pulled out a set of gleaming keys from his pocket and placed them on the table between them. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Keys to your new office space, Mr. Carr confirmed, a proud smile on his face. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Daniel looked at the keys, feeling the weight of them in his palm. They weren't just metal objects, they were the portals to his dreams. Thank you so much. As he turned to leave, he caught Lena's gaze again, but this time her expression was different, a mixture of surprise and contemplation. You know, Daniel, she said, her voice softer, maybe I misjudged you today. You've got guts. Thanks, Lena. It's about proving that what's inside counts for more than what's on the outside, he replied, feeling the tension dissipate. Once outside, Daniel's heart soared with each step. The world felt different, filled with promise. As he reached the street corner, the buzz of the city wrapped around him like an electric blanket, invigorating him. But just as he began walking toward his future, he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Pulling it out, his excitement faded, the message before him suppressing his joy. It was a notification from his bank, an alert. The weight of reality crashed over him. Here he stood, with keys to an office but not enough to pay for the rent, let alone the services he'd need to launch Creative Connect. The fear crept back in, demanding attention. As Daniel stood there, inching deeper into despair, footsteps approached from behind. He turned to find Mr. Carr walking up to him. Hey, Daniel, hope rekindled inside him. Mr. Carr, the investor nodded, concern flickering across his face as he glanced at Daniel's troubled expression. I just got a notification from my bank about insufficient funds. Daniel's voice strained with anxiety. Mr. Carr placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We can discuss funding options, but you need to focus on growing this idea, not the immediate barriers. Daniel nodded, feeling a mix of relief and lingering doubt, but then Mr. Carr's next words struck him like a lightning bolt. But you'll need to act fast. As reality set in, Daniel felt the weight of his aspirations pressing down. Could he turn this opportunity into something real, or would it slip through his fingers? The uncertainty gnawed at him. Keep that fire alive, Mr. Carr said, offering a supportive nod. But in that moment of hope, doubt lingered at the edges, whispering its cruel reminders. As Daniel stood there, infused with a sense of urgency and anxiety, he wondered whether he was truly capable of realizing his dreams. And as he glanced back at the gleaming building behind him, now with doors unlocked but full of challenges ahead, he realized he was standing at a crossroads. Was he ready to fight for what he believed in? Or would he turn away from the daunting shadows creeping closer? In that instant, the journey before him loomed large, full of obstacles he had yet to face, but also brimming with the potential to become someone greater. The choices he would make in the coming days would define not just his future, but the impact he could have on the world around him. And with that, Daniel took another deep breath, gripping the keys tightly in his hand, ready to choose his path.